We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday when you hear this. It is Christmas Eve for those that celebrate Christmas Eve. Going to see my granddaughter tomorrow on Christmas Day. Pretty excited about that. In on the show today, we have Eric. And Eric, actually, as of late, I've seen him more than I see my granddaughter. And with all due respect, Eric, my granddaughter's a hell of a lot cuter than you are. I'm just saying.
No offense taken. I guarantee that's without even knowing what your granddaughter looks like. I guarantee that's the case.
Yeah. Well, Eric's been on some lives with me with some other folks. That was kind of interesting. I'd never done lives with guests before, and then I started doing it, and it seemed to go pretty well. It was a little more organized than I thought it would be with the likes of you and Will and TJ and some of the other ones that have been on together. I thought there's no way we're going to keep this straight, but it did. I was surprised by that. It went pretty well.
Oh yeah, they went great. I love doing the multi-guest lives because you always hear different perspectives. Actually, on a live I did just before we recorded this, we were talking about that, and I said the same thing on that live. Like everybody's got their own take. They all know different things. Um, they've had different experiences or they have their expertise is in a different field. So
Right.
it's always good to get that kind of different perspective, and that's what sets left-leaning people aside, apart from right-leaning Republicans. Anybody who thinks differently than a Republican or than Donald Trump, they kick you out of the way. They don't want to hear from you.
Yeah,
The- you know,
that's the thing about Republicans. They hear something and they just repeat it and they stick to that. I know people like you and I will see a situation and we try to look at it from all angles. Why is it good? Why is it bad? What does it really mean? And what do you really have to do about it? And there is no one answer particularly. There are different takes on it that you and I might have differently, but you really got to do the research into it and understand what's really going on. And that's where the Republicans fall down. All they know is Donald Trump good, everybody else in the world is bad. And that's their fucking failure.
well, yeah, and they don't look past the end of their nose. I did a TikTok on this. We were talking about the spending bill that just passed and averting the government shutdown. And I had a Trumper come into my comment section and basically said, because the original deal that Donald Trump killed was 1,500 pages roughly, and the bill Joe Biden finally signed that they passed was 120 pages. Well,
Right.
clearly they cut out 1,300 pages of government waste, all the spendings. They nixed all that wasteful spending. How much pork was in that bill? And what these people don't understand is the first bill had everything listed out line by line with dollars and figures and everything. It was very comprehensive. The one that Joe Biden signed basically said, keep doing it the way we've been doing it, and directed them to go back and look at a previous bill to figure out where the numbers and the figures were in. Like all of that information wasn't there. That's where all of the cuts were. There were some things that got cut out, sure, but it wasn't like it was 1,300 pages of stuff that's not going to get spent now. Just all of the details were missing.
Or you could, honestly, you or I could take that 120 pages and probably distill out all the bullshit verbiage and all the government fucking noise and probably put it on 2 pages in terms of the bottom line. But these dumb fucks, these simple-minded fucks, think by virtue of it being fewer pages that it must be better. These are motherfuckers that don't take the time to read anything. I could write some pretty egregious shit on 1 page, and if their only criteria is that it's not a lot of pages, they're going to get duped. And they did get duped in this thing. Basically, um, it's basically a small variation on the first bipartisan plan that they didn't want to vote on because Donald Trump said no. And then, of course, they come back with the ridiculous shit and they say no to that. And they have to come to some terms. I mean, the Democrats said, Rashkin said, and Hakeem Jeffries said, we agreed on that bipartisan plan. We're not going to sign anything any different to that. Well, it's slightly different. There are a few things left out. like the money for the kids' cancer. That wasn't in that plan, but they did a standalone thing after that. So the kids funding for the kids with cancer funding did actually happen, correct?
Yeah, it did pass on its own. There was something else that got eliminated from it. There was the transfer of RFK Stadium to the city of DC from federal control.
Mm-hmm.
No money changed hands on the RFK Stadium. This is just allowing the city of DC to use the stadium, control the stadium, develop the area around the stadium. However, the ownership stays with the federal government. But like they can do basically whatever they want on like a 50-year lease or something with like no money changing hands. Something like that. It's all legalese for we give you permission to do what you want. And I guess they're looking at using that area for the Washington Commanders now. But people
Right.
were saying, well, there's going to be money for this, that there's like millions of dollars. No, there's no money. This is just letting DC, if they want to spend their own money for the city, they can do it. Um, so yeah, like and that passed again as a standalone thing. That was in the original bill. So even the stuff they cut sounds like it all got passed anyway. They just did it in a different form when no one was paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. And this is part and parcel to how simple these dumb fucks are. It's literally a clown show. I was talking to you this before we started recording. The one thing that's got the hot news story lately, and it's so silly, it's ridiculous. Donald Trump says he must have been in a briefing where they were talking about how much Panama is charging the United States to use the Panama Canal, and he didn't like it, so he says we're just going to take the Panama Canal back. And the funny thing about it is it's very much like the tariffs he wants to impose on Canada and Mexico. Um, um, Donald Trump wants to impose those 25% tariffs. And what Donald Trump fails to remember is when he was fucking around with NAFTA and wanted to change it a little bit and then put his name on it. I think it's the AMCA or something like that. That's what
Yeah.
NAFTA is called now. In that treaty, it very specifically says that these three countries can't impose tariffs on one another. So if he did impose those tariffs, it would be against federal law. I'm not saying that's going to stop him. But in the same vein with the Panama Canal, there's a treaty there too. And in each of the cases, the president of Mexico, the president of Panama, and the prime minister of Canada, when Donald Trump made those threats, they basically said, fuck yourself. You can't do anything. That's how Mr. Tough Guy is coming off. And he's looking pretty foolish in the process.
Oh yeah, he's looking really weak. This whole thing with the Panama Canal. I mean, so we got the Panama Canal in what was it, 1917, I think.
Yeah.
Because we were the only country that was willing to put money into finishing and developing the canal. So, like Panama agreed to give us control of the canal because in exchange for our investment. Okay. So we put the money and we did the canal. And then we had control till the 70s with Carter. Carter transfers it back after a joint control period for like 20 years. And then in 99, it fully goes back to Panama. We haven't had a claim on the Panama Canal since Carter, realistically.
Right.
And he wants to just say, yeah, we're going to take it back. Now, if you look at his Truth Social post about the Panama Canal, he didn't write that motherfucker. He
No, of
didn't.
course not.
I
It's got to be
guarantee he
Stephen
didn't.
Miller or some dumb fuck like that.
Well, it's long. It is grammatically correct. Everything is spelled correctly.
Yeah,
There,
that's not
everything is
Donnie.
capitalized correctly. There, it's not a run-on sentence full of nothing but caps, and there's punctuation.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely not Donnie. Donnie's not
Donald Trump
capable
did
of
not
that kind
write
of
that
grammar.
motherfucker. But somebody
Yeah.
got to him and said, "You'll look like a genius if you get the control of the canal back." That's what happened. And now he's been saying it. And the president of Panama said, "Fuck yourself. That's our land. The only way you're getting it is if you take it." And so what is he going to do? Try to start a war in Panama? He's already
Well,
threatening to.
he wants a soft invasion into Mexico, so fuck, who knows?
Oh yeah, he wants to do a soft invasion into Mexico. But then did you see this surprised me. when he was at Turning Point USA in Arizona, um, he called the president of Mexico a
Mexico.
wonderful woman.
President Scheinbaum, yeah.
Yeah, I think he called her a one. I think he said wonderful. This is one of the few times I remember him talking about a female political head of state in any country that he didn't refer to them as a nasty woman.
Yeah, it's true. Well, she's a very smart woman. She's a physicist, as I understand it. She's very sharp. She's very confident, and she doesn't take any shit. So maybe that kind of woman is intimidating to Donald Trump. So he's trying to get in her good graces. I don't know, but Donald Trump's not going anywhere in Mexico or Canada. He's not going to invade Panama. It's just all silliness. You know, one of the things when this talk started about President Elon Musk and Vice President Donald Trump, I said, you need to keep yelling that because if there's one thing that gets to Donald Trump, it's being embarrassed or marginalized. He's a narcissist. So that's the worst thing you can do to him. So it went on and on. It was in the media, it was, amongst people in the social media. And finally, he broke. Finally, he made some comments. I think he made a comment in Truth Social. I think he made a comment in a speech or a press conference or something. Elon's not the president. I'm the president elect. I got the votes. I got the power. He's such a whiny little bitch. And I'm telling folks, I go, okay, we broke him. We got him. But he's a narcissist. This is no time to let up. This is the time to ramp it up. Embarrass this motherfucker every chance we can get. And he's taking it hook, line, and sinker.
Oh yeah, when I was doing that live right before we recorded this, we were talking about that exact thing, and our friend TJ chimed in and said,
Yeah,
"Yeah, we have to keep referring to him as President Musk from now on," and because that is going to drive Donnie nuts, and that is going to hasten the split between the two of them. Because when push comes to shove, Musk will be the one to go.
absolutely. And Musk really has to go. I mean, Donnie's dangerous, but we're kind of stuck in that situation. Elon is only in the mix because Donald Trump allows him to be in the mix. And in some ways, he's more dangerous because he can influence Donnie Trump. And he's a little more cognitively credible. And I guess I would have to say he's smarter. I push back when people say that Elon's a genius. He's not a fucking genius. Otherwise, he wouldn't have Twitter going into the shitter. But I think he does. I think what Elon has over Donald Trump is because he's the richest guy in the world, he's got Donnie on the hook because Donnie likes that money. He doesn't like being embarrassed. And if he has to make a choice between the two, he'll kick him loose and figure he'll get the money someplace else. But that money is holding him pretty tight to Elon. And I think Elon is kind of playing him. I don't know if you heard this story. There was talk that Elon was thinking about buying True Social and merging it with X, which is absolutely ridiculous. If he did that, it would just prove my point. He's an idiot. But as long as that's hanging out there, Donald Trump can maybe take a company that isn't worth shit and maybe put some money in his pocket. That's enough for him to stay buddies with Elon, at least until he gets the money, which he'll never get.
Well, a couple things with the whole True Social thing being bought by Twitter. If it's true, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about the money. Donald Trump wanting the money, and he could maybe take a company that, like you said, not worth shit. Uh, but the whole reason Donald Trump started Truth Social in the first place was because Twitter banned him after January 6th.
Right.
That was the whole reason, is he was mad at Twitter for banning him. Now, granted, Musk didn't own Twitter then, but still, that's the whole reason they started it. And it was a big thing about free speech for people on the right and not censoring of it, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of dumb. But hearing that Twitter might buy Truth Social reminds me back to the late 90s, early 2000s when Sears and Kmart merged. You
Oh,
got two
yeah.
companies that are fucking failing, barely hanging on. And what's the solution? Let's merge them together and that'll save us. No, they need to be, but one of them needed to be bought by somebody who was making some damn money.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I should take my podcast and merge with Brian Wallenberg's podcast. That should bring in an audience.
Oh,
It's
for
just the whole
Lord.
thing. No, the whole thing is silly. And what's interesting is he isn't even the president yet. And he's already made himself look like a fool, not only in this country, but internationally now. Uh, as much as I'm fearful about the things he might do, and I'm not convinced he's going to be able to accomplish much after what we saw with this budget bill. Um, if nothing else, there's going to be a lot of fucking material, and I'm going to have a good time making fun of this motherfucker because there'll be an unlimited amount of fucking material to use against this clown.
We both will.
Yeah,
Um, he's not going to get much accomplished ultimately. Democrats are going to have to hold the line. And of course, Republicans are going to fuck everything up, and Democrats are going to have to fix it again. Jesus Christ, I'm getting sick and tired of having to fix everything for the damn Republicans because they fuck everything up. But he's made us look like a fool. And I think Republicans are only going to tolerate him until about 12:01 p.m. January 20th.
yeah,
Once he says the oath of office and he's done and he's in, the clock is ticking for when they get rid of him.
yeah.
He's a lame duck at that point. He can't get reelected. Um, and now there is some question about, it says no person shall be elected to the office more than twice. Now, if they kick him out 2 days in, could he technically get another whole term? I don't think so. I wouldn't. I
Technically
wouldn't
speaking, he
imagine.
was elected twice. He was
Right,
president twice.
and he was sworn in. They may try something there to get him to run in 28, but I don't think he'll be mentally fit, or maybe not even alive in 28.
Yeah, I doubt
But
that.
I think at that point, there's a clock ticking. We just don't know when it's going to go off as to when he's out of office.
Yeah,
You know,
and the
what?
thing is, somebody like Donald Trump, a narcissist like that, is delusional. They think they're the greatest humans in the world, and they think everybody else thinks that too. So when that day comes when they try to kick him to the curb, he's going to be totally blindsided, which I'm looking forward to because that will be devastating to him.
Oh, that's going to be devastating. It's going to be hilarious. His meltdown is going to be epic. I'm thinking, full toddler 3 a.m. meltdown because you want them to go to bed, and not stay up and play with their toys or something like that. That kind of
Yeah.
a meltdown. Um, but even if whatever point in time he's no longer president, whether they have Congress pass something with the 25th Amendment, whether they impeach and remove him and set a date and a deadline with those two things as to when he's not president, or when 12 noon, January 20th, 2029 comes around and the next president gets sworn in, does not matter. Whenever that oath gets taken, new president has all the authority. He can kick and scream and whine and cry all he wants. He's not the president. He can't sign
Right.
anything. He can't do anything. So no matter what temper tantrum he tries to throw, it's not going to matter. The country will move on without him.
Well, here's the messy part we're going to see when that day comes. With my experience with narcissists, they're all about being bullies. They're all about flexing their muscle and being powerful and pushing people back and making them cower and all that stuff. But when the tide turns and they have no power in that regard, they can't get people to cow from them. They fucking freak out. I mean, I had that situation with my father. He was a bully. He was doing all this stuff. But when I got to be about 16 years old and pretty good size and in good shape and an athlete, I finally said, fuck you. I'm going to kick your ass, you motherfucker. He freaked out. He freaked out. And in fact, after that, anytime he had a complaint about me, he did it through my mom. He wouldn't come to me face to face because they're fucking cowards. And when Donald Trump comes to the realization that he can't do anything, his strategies don't work anymore, that's going to be a devastating moment for him. That's when he falls apart. And that's why I could never understood why the Republicans allowed him that power After 2020, they could have kicked him to the curb and shut him down quickly. But they were so greedy for whatever votes or money he could bring in, they were willing to risk that. Well, they risked that. Now they're going to have to deal with the consequences once it's over.
Yeah, and we've talked about it several times. Mitch McConnell could have rid us of Donald Trump with that second impeachment. He could have said, hey,
Yeah.
let's vote him out. Let's kick him to the curb and be done with it. He needs to go. But instead, he wanted Democrats to clean up their mess and figured the incoming Biden administration would pick an attorney general who'd do something and investigate Trump.
Yeah.
And then they went back and they kissed the ring and they bring him back into the fold. Well, now he feels invincible because he got away with January 6th.
Right.
But now the next 4 years, they have to deal with the monster they created, and they're going to have to be the ones to fix it, and they're going
Yeah.
to have to be the ones to deal with him. Now, when it comes to impeaching him or even removing him, like if it gets to the point where Republicans are calling for it, the Democrats, all the votes are going to be lockstep, and they're only going to need to. I mean, it's still going to be hard, but they would need about 20 Republicans in the House or in the Senate to vote to remove him. And they would have all 215 Democrats in the House probably voting on impeachment articles to send it to the Senate. Like they're going to have the Democrats on their side when they go to remove him, I would think.
Oh yeah, exactly. And no matter what happens, when they do get rid of him, MAGA people are going to freak out. And it's going to cause a further rift in the Republican Party, weakening the Republican Party more. I mean, we know they're divided now, but if they actually do get rid of Donald Trump, 30% of the Republican Party is going to hate the motherfuckers that did it. And they're going to be hard pressed to come up with any unity at all in upcoming elections, 26 or 28. They're fucked in that regard.
Well, yeah, I've been talking about that doing the lives and stuff. I keep saying the only way JD Vance comes out of this smelling good-ish, not even great, maybe passable in 28, is if uh, Donald Trump dies.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
about his only
absolutely.
way he has a shot at 28. Maybe if they get to 28, Donald Trump's still kicking and JD Vance runs and because the Republicans didn't pass a damn thing and they kept running on Biden's economy. If everything's coasting and okay, and he doesn't have to own a failed economy, maybe he's got a shot then. But more than likely, Donald Trump's going to fuck up the economy. So JD Vance is going to have to own that, just like Kamala owned the perceived bad economy under Biden.
Right.
Um, and then if they 25th Amendment him, because JD would have to be the one to go to Congress and say, yeah, he's not there anymore. He's mentally unfit. We can't have him as president. They would hate him worse than they hate Mike Pence, and they tried to hang that motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing about it is I've heard reports of this that the Republican Party doesn't really see J.D. Vance as the future of their party. He doesn't fit the mold. He's certainly not a Donald Trump copy, and he's too weak and too easily manipulated to front the Republican Party. I guarantee you, Donald Trump didn't want him. The Republican Party didn't want him. It was a matter of the money that Peter Thiel offered and maybe Elon Musk offered to get him in there. That's a bought and paid for position. And I don't know anybody else who's buying into it other than Donald Trump because he took the money, whatever money that was. He's not a good candidate. He's not a smart man. He's smarter than Donald Trump, but a fucking pumpkin pie is smarter than Donald Trump. So that doesn't really matter. I think everybody before we came into before when he was elected, everybody kept saying, "Oh my God, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, he's going to do this," and what's happening now prior to the inauguration with the budget and Elon wanting Rick Scott as the majority leader in the Senate, and that not working, and Matt Gaetz, that not working. Um, it's all pretty. It's all pretty lame as far as what the Republicans really will get a hold of. We saw with the budget thing, they can't do anything in the House without the help of the Democrats, and the Democrats aren't going to help them do something crazy like deportation or tariffs or anything like that. My biggest concern once he got elected wasn't all the bad things he's going to do, it's all the time that's being wasted. Because while he probably won't be able to accomplish as much as a lot of people think he might, that also means nothing's going to get done because the House or the Senate isn't going to allow him to do anything. And if we get control of the House and we somehow get something through, he's never going to sign it. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern for 4 years at this point.
Yes, but a couple of things I've been talking about in my lives is we don't know for sure that they're going to have Mike Johnson as Speaker. Entirely possible that Mike Johnson's not Speaker of the House. So there's a couple scenarios here. One is in the next 3-ish weeks, Mike Johnson whips the vote, or I guess it's 2 weeks, whatever. He whips the
January
vote.
3rd.
Yeah, and he gets all 219 Republicans behind him, and he wins first ballot. Okay? Second chance is somebody else whips the vote and gets all 218 or 219 Republicans behind them. They become Speaker. Or they go round and round and round and round, and like we've seen before, and Mike Johnson has to give up the farm again to get the Speaker's gavel. There's also another couple possibilities. One is it only takes three Republicans saying, fuck this shit, and siding with Hakeem Jeffries. Because the Democrats are going to keep coming and saying, Jeffries, 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 every time. The other thing I thought of that Jeffries could do, and I think this came up as I was thinking about the funding deal and how Jeffries played hardball. He comes up to him and goes, look, I got 215 votes, Mike Johnson. You need 3 more to be Speaker. Here's our demands.
Right.
We get these things passed, we make you Speaker. Entirely possible. And maybe it's not even demands. Maybe it's, okay, things to pass. Maybe it's keep these things off the table. Do not bring any bill about it up to for a vote. And they tell him.
The only thing I would say is get it up front, though, because Hakeem Jeffries, or maybe it was Rashkin, somebody made this comment that that Mike Johnson has lost all credibility as a negotiator now after cutting this bipartisan budget bill and then dumping it and getting rid of it. You can't trust the motherfucker. You can't trust any Republican for that matter, but you can't cut a deal in the future with Mike Johnson because he'll blow it out of the water, just like any other Republican would.
Well, then that's where they were in that point before with Kevin McCarthy. They had a deal, and they said, look, you get us a bipartisan funding deal, basically, keep everything the same, keep the status quo, we'll save your job as Speaker when they come for you. And they did. And then they came around, they had another deal for something. I think it was another funding deal. And he reneged on the deal.
Yeah.
And then MAGA came for Kevin McCarthy, and when it came time to save his ass, Democrats went, no, you failed us once. We're not playing this game again. And they didn't save his ass. So
and that's what they should do. I mean, you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And the Republicans are used to getting fucking duped by these Republicans. You can't trust them at all. There's nothing you can do to trust them. They should let him just go out there and fucking hang, because what's going to happen is they're going to have trouble coming up with a new speaker. It might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, it might be a fucking month. But while that's all going on, that's chewing up time for Donald Trump to be able to do stuff. So let them twist in the wind. Fuck it. I mean, nothing's going to get done in there anyway with the Republicans in control. Why not just let the fuckers twist?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But the other thing, eating up the time is one thing, because as long as they can't accomplish anything in the House, great, because then nothing moves, nothing changes. But something I was talking about with this funding deal is if you look at what they had for like a vote. Now, not all members of the House were present for the funding bill. I think there's what 430 members of the House, and I think only was it 400 or 390 voted on the bill, something like that.
Right.
Something like that. But they passed it with like 86, 87% support. So what they may have to do to get like funding done and things like that is if they come up to a continuing resolution again, like in March, to fund the government for 9 more months at the current levels or whatever, it's probably going to have to pass at a veto-proof majority in both houses.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take the Democrats. They're going to have to veto it. They're going to have to go around Donald Trump to get anything done. And that's where
veto
it's going to take
proof is that's 2/3, right?
Yes.
2/3 of the 430 plus people. That's a big ask, and it's
That's,
obviously going to need the Democrats in a big way.
it actually came up in that live. Somebody else had the numbers. It is 67 senators and 290 in the House.
Wow.
So,
And they have
Democrats
218.
They have, well, 220, but yeah, that means that, but on the other side, Democrats have 215. So it would only take, what would that be? 75 Republicans to cross party lines to pass stuff around the president. I mean, it sounds like a big ask, but if it's about keeping the government open and not completely wrecking the economy and destroying their party's chances in the future, I think there's at least 75 members of the House that would do that.
Yeah, probably. But here's another thing to consider too. Donald Trump ridiculously wanted to shut down the government because in his head he believed if it happened during Joe Biden's tenure that he would get the blame for it, which was absolutely ridiculous. The Republicans were going to get nailed with it if it shut down. Does he look at it differently now that he's president? He doesn't want to shut down while he's president. Now, he did it twice during his term, so he didn't care. Question is, did he learn a lesson of how that hurt him when he did it the first time?
I don't know. He might not be nearly as willing because of all of the times he kept saying, well, you're going to have Joe Biden will have to own it. The Democrats are the ones that are pushing. Like he's going to, if it does shut down or it even comes close, he's going to push the same nonsense. But ultimately, I think it's going to be the Democrats that keep the government open again. They're going to probably pass something around Donald Trump, even if he vetoes it. The problem is it's all going to depend on who's got his ear at that moment. If Musk is still in the picture saying shutdown's good, a shutdown's good, then he won't sign a funding bill. You get somebody else in there who knows what the fuck is up, then, they probably will fund the government. He'll sign whatever's put in front of him.
Do you know why he wanted the limits off the debt ceiling so much? There's a couple of reasons why he wanted it off. First of all, he wants to give big tax cuts to wealthy people. You're going to need the debt ceiling limits off to do that. Secondly, if you're actually going to do deportation of 18 million people, we're talking about costing $100 billion. With those limits intact, he's not going to be able to come up with the money to do that deportation. And so he's trying to set it up so that he has free reign to do whatever he wants, which is ironic with the Republicans constantly telling us that they're the fiscally responsible party, but they want take all limits off and we can do whatever the fuck we want. He added 7 trillion the first term. He's probably thinking, let's try to do 14 trillion this time. He's got nothing to lose since he can't run again. That's the one scary part of Donald Trump. He'll do or fucking say anything because he's got nothing to lose other than if he gets kicked out of office.
Well, yeah, but one of the things to remember with the debt ceiling and funding for stuff, even if they completely remove the cap like they did the last time the debt ceiling came up, they didn't actually extend it by a number. They extended it to a date and just said, okay, we're not going to have a debt limit until this date in the future. and then we'll figure out what number we need after that date. So one thing, even if there is a debt limit, or if it's gone or whatever, that still doesn't give Donald Trump free reign to spend any amount of money he wants. All funding still has to come from Congress.
Right.
So if he needs $500 billion for these deportations, Congress still has to approve that amount of money. And I don't
True.
see that happening.
No, no, but even if it was, if there was a limit that they can do, then they would be restricted by that. I forgot what I was going to say. Uh, Donald Trump is not a smart man. So you and I can rationalize these things out. Donald Trump thinks that he can bully or leverage anybody with anything. And that's his first go to every time. He says he wants something and they don't give it. Well, then I'm going to do this. It's all a threat. And most of those threats are bullshit, like I'm going to invade Mexico or I'm going to take the canal back. He's not doing that. There was never going to be a time when he could actually do that. But this is how he talks. This is how he's lived his life. And what he hasn't learned now, it might have worked when you were in your family or in school, but in government, it's a much bigger situation. He hasn't realized that government is bigger than he is. It's stronger than he is. There's a system to it. Not even he can usurp that power. He's still stuck in this mindset. I'm Donald Trump. I can do whatever the fuck I want, and I'll just scare him. He continually gets his ass kicked when he does that, but the motherfucker does not learn a lesson. He keeps doing it.
Yeah, he's incapable of learning anything realistically. He had that meeting a while back with Justin Trudeau where they were trying to explain to him exactly how a tariff works. He still doesn't understand what the fuck a tariff is. I firmly believe that Donald Trump thinks a tariff is a magical thing you put on the country that you say you're putting the tariff on, like Canada, Mexico, China, whoever, and that their government pays that money to the other country. And it comes out of like the national coffers, not the business. It doesn't get passed on
Right.
to consumers. I think that's what he believes because that's
I
the
think
only
he
thing that
thinks
makes
it's like a
sense.
fine. I think he thinks
Yeah,
it's like a fine that they got to write you a check for. This dumb fuck doesn't comprehend this.
no, he doesn't know fuck all about fuck all. And a few days ago, he came out with one where he was talking about trying to force the European Union to buy a major oil purchase from the United States, saying there's a trade deficit. Well, he's partially correct. If you look at only goods, the amount of physical items that we said they buy, let's see, that we exchange,
Right.
we buy more from them than they buy from us. There's a deficit. But if you
Right.
add in services, things like airfare, um, just anything that's intangible, something that you would consider a service industry, when you add that in, it's about even.
Okay.
But he's not looking at that number. He's a dumb fuck. So now he wants to try to force him to buy a whole shit ton more oil, even though, as Mr. Global on TikTok pointed out, who's a gas and oil expert,
Right.
um, says, hey, they're buying double what they bought under the Trump administration already.
Right.
And Donald Trump doesn't know or care. He's just making noise. But having another buyer buy a big chunk of U.S. oil is the only way his drill baby drill works.
Well, that's exactly right. And the oil companies have said, yeah, we're not going to do that. We don't need to do that. We're already drilling more than we were. We're already producing more oil than we were. We got Canada sending down a shitload of oil too. So I don't think selling oil is really a problem for us at this point. What's a
It's not.
problem is like the CHIPS Act and getting those chips made here, like Joe Biden did. We had a problem with the chips, of course. Cars didn't have chips, so they were sitting on lots. So Joe Biden says, okay, we'll make chips here. And that's nice. And that's a great idea. And it's working pretty well up until the time that Donald Trump goes and talks about tariffs on China. and they say, we're not going to send you any more rare earth minerals, which is important to creating fucking chips. This guy will fuck up any good thing that's sitting in front of him just so he can make it look like it's his idea or he has a better idea. And Donald Trump never has a better idea. He has a fucked up idea, usually.
Well, he don't know fuck all about fuck all. And he'll
No.
say, well, I'm gonna undo the Chips Act because it's so unfair to us. What was unfair about it? We're making the stuff here. That's the exact thing you want. But then he would come back around and pass something that basically does the exact same thing. But by the time they pass something that would restart it all the progress that was made and everything's already done, like it's such a setback that it's ridiculous. He doesn't know fuck all about fuck all, but he will always think he's the smartest person in the room.
And whenever I talk to Trump about the tariff thing and they try to school me on it because they're so smart, their premise, I think even Brian Wallenberg suggested this. Their premise on tariffs is we put tariffs on China or somebody who's ever selling us things, and that will force people to buy from American companies. Well, that's well and good. If they're American companies who make the products, we're buying from China, but chances are there isn't because we get it so cheap from China. So we put the tariffs on. We buy from American companies, but they don't exist or they're not up and running as yet. So we got to wait 2 years, 4 years until they get up and running. The whole premise does not work. It means we're going to have a shortage of something and we're going to pay more for, if we do play that game, uh, even if an American company can produce it just by virtue of wages and such, we're still going to pay more for it anyway than we would have if it came from China or whatever. There's a certain balance to trade. Donald Trump wants to be an isolationist. We get everything from America. Fuck the other countries. But there's a certain balance, and everybody does trading because they have more resources in certain areas, and then it's smarter to balance it out that way. But for whatever reason, Donald Trump and Trumplafucks just don't grasp it.
No, they don't have a clue. And somebody said, I think it might have been TJ, that said it could take 7 to 8 years to get a factory up and running. You know,
Absolutely.
so well beyond. And the whole time, then we're fighting these tariffs and higher costs. Plus, even if we do have American companies producing here, well, if they're at if their competition's at 8 and they're at 10 and their competition's got to go to 10, well, now they're going to go to 12 and they're just going to make
Right.
they'll just make $4 profit instead of $2 profit, and it's not going to change anything. But even for the stuff we can already produce here, like coffee, there's the Kona coffee in Hawaii.
Right.
We can grow coffee, but Starbucks alone, with the amount of coffee they use, would burn through what they grow in Hawaii in a year. Starbucks sells through in 3 months.
Right. Right.
And that's
Exactly.
one chain. That's one coffee chain. That's not counting everybody else who, produces coffee or, either, the coffee you get at your grocery store, whatever. It doesn't make a lick of sense. But Donald
And
Trump
then
doesn't think that way.
it would create a shortage and coffee prices would go up. That's the fucking silliness of this thing.
Well, yeah, the whole
Fucking
thing, like,
unbelievable.
none of it makes a lick of sense. But they want you to believe, like, they're twisting in the wind already, trying to find a way to make it so Donald Trump saying lowering prices is going to be hard. So now they're trying to find a way to twist it so that higher prices is actually better for the economy and to make Donald Trump look like a genius by not lowering the prices. I've seen some people making comments and videos like that. Jesus Christ. Like, these people their brains are broken, as Hawk says a lot. Their brains are broken.
Absolutely. They're absolutely fucking broken and they're absolutely ignorant and they're part of a cult. Now, I want to talk about what may be the dumbest news story in politics. And remember, that's saying something because Donald Trump and all the Trumplafucks out there, and this doesn't involve Donald Trump, I talked to Jace about it yesterday on the show, mainly because its origins are in his home state. But you brought it up to me before we went on. And go ahead, tell us the story because it's fucking absurd.
So apparently, there is a representative from Texas, Kay Granger, who has not done fuck all as a member of Congress since July.
Now
Hasn't shown up.
she should have just got reelected in November, right?
No, she did not run for reelection.
Oh,
The
okay. So
article I
she's
read, she
okay. I
was
got you.
done as of this end of this Congress anyway.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
that's the way I understand it.
That
Now,
makes sense.
so she wasn't running for reelection, hasn't done anything since July. Apparently, there are no staffers in her office. The phone goes to a full mailbox. Um, there's nobody in her field office, like in her district. They can't get a hold of anybody. Nobody knew where she was. Didn't show up for votes. Wasn't anywhere. Nobody could reach her, and nobody's talking about it. Well, Dallas Express, which is a news outlet, newspaper, something in Dallas, I'm not actually sure what they are,
Right.
started digging into it. And they find out she's living in an assisted care facility and has been since July when she got found wandering around in the middle of the night in her old neighborhood, lost, disoriented, and confused.
She's in a memory care unit in Texas, and she just hadn't checked into work, and nobody questioned it. You know,
Yep.
we're used to Republicans doing stuff that's shady, but I can't even imagine why not mention it would have hurt it. If she's not voting, she was really of no value to the Republican Party in the House. Is it that they just didn't want the embarrassment to acknowledge that, or they didn't want to have some kind of special election before the election? I don't know. What the fuck? Why would you even bother doing that? Or are they just that incompetent?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that part of it. Realistically, my issue is why didn't either party say anything?
It's
Where were the
good
Democrats
point.
on this issue? Why weren't the Democrats? And it's not their job to hold the other party accountable. But why weren't they talking about, hey, we've got a member of the House for the Republican Party that's just missing as nothing's getting done? Whenever these funding deadline votes come up, whenever anything major needs passed, disaster aid, whatever the case, why weren't they out saying, hey, we've got a missing member of Congress here who hasn't shown up since July. Nobody can find her. Nobody on either side of the aisle was talking about it. And I think one of the reasons I think nobody was talking about it is they don't want to draw attention to the age of both members of Congress.
That may be.
Because
That could be.
you're talking about an 81-year-old member of Congress who's still in office, who is now in a memory unit. She's in an assisted living facility. And then you got people like Nancy Pelosi who breaks a hip. You got Mitch McConnell who falls and breaks his wrist or sprains his wrist or whatever. You got Chuck Grassley at 91 going to run for re-election at 95. I don't think they wanted the attention on their ages.
I have a feeling that the age and the elderly members of Congress are going to get a lot of notice in the coming years, mainly because we've got this influx of younger people. The millennials and the Gen Zs and stuff. As much as we don't know how they're going to vote, they're going to kick back against these old folks. I've said it before. What business does anybody my age or older have in determining the destiny of millennials and Gen Zs? This is why we need a youth movement in the Democratic Party that they're fighting back against so fiercely. But old people like this are just out of touch. They don't have the same perspective as somebody who's going to live it, like people who maybe have to deal with abortion rights or having to do with minimum wage type things. This is why we have the problems right now, because we got old school people acting like it's still old school. And we're an entirely different world now than we were even 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, I've commented a lot in my lives talking about, because I rail against him almost every live. Chuck Grassley
Yeah,
being
your guy.
91, going to run for re-election at 95. That would make him 101 if he serves out the next term that he has already said he wants to run for. Jesus Christ, he turned 18 in the 50s. You know, there is
Early
nothing
50s,
about, yeah,
early 50s.
yeah, like 51,
Yeah.
because he was born in 33. So there is nothing for the young people that are turning 18 now. There's nothing the same about those two experiences at all.
No.
Yes, age brings some wisdom, sure. But how long, even if Chuck Grassley would have bought a house right out of high school at 18 in 1951, got a 30-year mortgage and paid on that fucker every month for 30 years, his house would have been paid off before I was alive. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
the
I do.
the whole situation is just dumb. His house has probably been paid off for 20 or 30 years at this point. And
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe he's upgraded. I don't know. But that's not the point. You got somebody at 91 who should be well into retirement, and they're not facing the same struggles as people my age and younger are facing, where you can't buy a house. We've talked about it several times when I'm on the show. I got a coworker, was just talking to her a week or two ago, where she said she can't get approved for a home loan, for $1,000 to $1,200 a month home loan,
Right.
because it doesn't have enough work history, doesn't have a long enough credit history to get approved. But she can pay that figure for a one-bedroom apartment,
Yeah. It's
and
it's
the rental
silly.
company has no problem taking her money.
Yeah. Yeah. Our government is completely out of touch with society. And I got to say, Joe Biden is part of that society too. As much as I love Joe Biden, we could have used a little more contemporary or a little more a younger president to deal with situations. Because even Joe was dealing with things that he remembered and the way things worked in the 90s. Like I say, we're in an entirely different world. You want to talk about norms and rules and stuff? Well, as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist anymore because Donald Trump and the Republicans trampled all over them. So if those norms aren't there for them, they shouldn't be for the Democrats, because if you keep those norms with the Democrats, it's not a fair fight. They do whatever they want. You fall within the rules and the norms. You're going to get your ass kicked every time. And this is why the Democrats have so much trouble. They got to be able to fight the fight, go to them with the fight that they're confronted with. But until we get rid of the old people, that's never going to happen. We need the AOCs or the young people to go say, or Jasmine Crockett say, fuck it. I'm bringing a machete to a knife fight instead of a butter knife.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is, after Donald Trump is out of office one way or the other, I think you're going to see at least some of the norms put back into play through laws and amendments, things like that. I think some things are going to come out because of it. But that's still a long ways out. That's at most 4 years out. And then you got however long it takes for those things to get enshrined. And then we got the question of who's going to fucking enforce them. We got the 14th Amendment. Everyone's talking about, the 14th Amendment is going to come into play and Donald Trump won't be president. How? I don't see a
Yeah,
court case. I don't see anybody applying anything. It's not going to be some magical thing. It's not going to show up. He's not going to show up to take the oath on January 20th, and someone is going to come running out of the crowd going, "Stop the inauguration!
no,
14th
yeah.
Amendment." It ain't going to happen. I don't think anything's in the works.
No, what that bothers me when I see TikTok. Oh, it's just a matter of time. Did you see this? Did you see that? They're going to come and get them at the last moment. God damn it! I wish that were the case, but I just can't buy into it. There's more involved. There's more moving parts if something like that is going to happen, and we would know about at least a little bit of it. I think one of the most disturbing things that have happened since the entrance of Donald Trump into politics is what's been exposed. Our Congress has no teeth. They aren't as tough and strong as we believe them to be. Our DOJ has no teeth. I mean, when you send out subpoenas from Congress and you can't get people to fucking show up and then you do nothing about it, Who's going? What politician in the future, who's a sitting politician, is even ever going to accept a subpoena? Why would they? Jim Jordan didn't have to. Why would Hakeem Jeffries have to? Why would anybody else have to? It's just really exposed how weak our government is. We always were led to believe they're tough, they're strong. Oh boy, you better not piss them off. But in the last 8 years, we found out that's all bullshit.
Yeah, and as far as like the some of it, like if Hakeem Jeffries were to get a subpoena, you know what? He'd show up
Well,
because
he would,
Democrats
yeah.
still play by the rules. They still play by those rules. They don't take that cheap shot tactic, but there's nobody enforcing it. And if Merrick Garland would have had the cojones to do what he needed to do and start the investigation January 21st, 2021, or whatever date he was put in as Attorney General, that investigation should have been started. Not come to find out almost 2 years later when they're releasing the J6 committee report that there's no investigation hardly started. And he goes, oh shit, we better do something about this, and then gets us Jack Smith.
Yeah.
But then you got Joe Biden didn't fire him. I would have fired him on the spot. Donald Trump would have.
Yeah. I mean, I said this to Jace. I said, once Joe Biden gets into office and we're into the first year and Merrick Garland has yet to do anything, I'd fire him on that at that point. I mean, he's obviously not doing the job. He's done a great injustice to this country. The fact that Donald Trump is running roughshod, Merrick Garland is as much responsible as any fucking Republican, and it's disappointing. Somebody who's supposed to be fighting for justice did everything he could to allow Donald Trump to avoid fucking justice. And I hope his legacy is shot because he fucking deserves it. The guy just the guy just fucking shit the bed. And there's no two ways about it. We could have been done with all this had he got on the job right away and got Donald Trump convicted and sentenced 2 years into this thing. Instead, he waits 2 years and gives him all the chances in the world. I mean, you talk about no teeth. We heard this recent story, this recent report that came out about the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas, Judge Alito, and the late Judge Scalia or Justice Scalia. They're all reports of them taking huge or ridiculous presents and money and trips and all that sort of thing. And as some people have pointed out, these are federal crimes. But Donald Trump will be in charge of the DOJ, and ain't nothing's going to happen to these guys. So we've got Supreme Court basically grifting, and they're corrupt, and they're just thumbing their nose at America. Where is the strength in America? Where is the actual justice? There is none. That's the unfortunate. The rules are fucking done.
Well, yeah, the DOJ is not going to do anything about a Supreme Court justice taking gifts. But then again, we've been talking about for 2 to 4 years that we knew how bad Clarence Thomas was. But
Exactly.
where was all this talk 20 years before now about how bad Thomas was? It didn't just start 4 years ago. It's been going on for 30. But we've been talking about it. And again, Merrick Garland, sitting in the DOJ, didn't do a damn thing about it. There was never an investigation. And then by the time it started to come out and start gaining a lot of traction, Democrats lose control of the House, so there's no chance of an impeachment. Because that's the only way you can get rid of a Supreme Court justice is to impeach and remove them. And even if they would have got him impeached, didn't matter how strong the evidence was, because they didn't want to give Joe Biden the chance to appoint another Supreme Court justice, Republicans would have saved Thomas. Republicans don't care about playing by the rules. They don't care about following the rule of law. And if Democrats were halfway decent at messaging, this would have been out in the public interest way more, way better, talked about 10 times more often, 10 times louder. Yeah. But they don't. They don't message worth shit.
No, they really don't. And what it exposed is, as much as we're led to believe the government is about the people in the country, what was exposed is that's not the case. The government is about perpetuating government, perpetuating the corruption, perpetuating the grift, perpetuating, filling their own pockets. And that's a real problem. I mean, we have a government specifically to work for this country and work for the people of this country. What we found out is they don't. And it's not just Republicans. I mean, this whole situation with Merrick Garland and the Supreme Court justices, I hold the Democrats just as responsible as the Republicans because they just sit on their hands. They don't do fucking anything. It's like a inside deal where you're one of us, so we're not going to do anything. I'm getting tired of that. I don't know how we change that or if we can change it, but something needs to change because we can't continue to have a corrupt Supreme Court and a Congress that has no teeth, a DOJ that doesn't do its job. There's no way to make, you don't have to have Donald Trump wreck democracy. The fucking democracy is doing it to themselves.
Yeah. As far as how do we fix it, the only way to fix it is from the inside. We have to get rid of a bunch of the old fuckers that have been there for too damn long. Now,
Right.
TJ correctly says a lot of times in the lives when we get talking about term limits versus age limits, that it should be age over term because experience matters. Sure, he's right. But there needs to be some kind of a limit, one way or the other, to keep these people from being in office for ever and a day. And then once we get some of the ones that have been in there for a long time out, then you can start affecting real change. You know, and I don't, some of the, like the long-term Democrats, sure, they're pushing for good things and they want good things. But they're also still playing within that old system as well. You know,
Right.
they're like, they'll say, oh, what's his name? Was it Conley? The guy who got the head of
Jerry Conley, yeah.
Jerry Conley. Yeah, he got the committee assignment over AOC. Well,
Right.
they'll say, well, he paid his dues. He's been here long enough. He deserves that position. Well, yeah, but how are we supposed to get younger if we're not putting younger people into leadership positions? You know, I was kind of surprised that Nancy Pelosi handed the leadership position to Hakeem Jeffries. You know, he's much younger. They could have gone with somebody almost as old as Nancy, but they didn't.
Like, but I will say this about Hakeem Jeffries. Just ahead of this, I will say I like Hakeem Jeffries. I think he'll be a good Speaker of the House when and if he ever gets to that point. But what we found out about Hakeem Jeffries, he took over for Nancy Pelosi, but Nancy Pelosi's still pulling the strings on that motherfucker. Still pulling the strings on him, and he feels obligated to her. And we know this because when Joe Biden was asked to step aside, most of the young people were saying no, but he agreed. We got to get her out of there because while she's not the Speaker of the House anymore, she still has quite a bit of influence. And that's why Jerry Conley is there and not AOC. We've gone through 4 years of old people fucking this up. We lost the election largely because of old people and the way they do business. You would think the Democrats at this point would say, hey, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And they didn't. They want to stick with what they're doing, and they'll fucking lose again if they keep doing this.
Well, yeah, and I think Will brought that up during our joint live about he was disappointed in Hakeem Jeffries for not pushing back on Nancy Pelosi and saying no. Well, that is a problem, and we need to get some of the younger people in leadership positions. We need to vote out some of the older people. You're telling me you can't find anybody younger to represent the city of San Francisco than Nancy Pelosi at 84. Yeah. I mean, you can run any Democrat in San Francisco and probably win. And I've never been to San Francisco, but from all understanding, it's very Democratic, very liberal. So they could run anybody. And that's what we need. And that's when you start affecting real change, is when you get some of the old guard that's in the way out. And that's on both sides of the aisle. Like, I would love to see, come 2028, the Democrats here in Iowa put up a great candidate for senator and finally beat out Chuck Grassley. The problem is it's Chuck Grassley. Yeah. He's been here longer than I've been alive. And when you go to the voting booth, you're going to see the name Grassley. There's a lot of people in the state that still think of Chuck Grassley as the man he was 20 or 30 years ago, and they vote for him every time. That's why one of the last things I heard about Grassley and his eventual retirement from the Senate, and I've talked about it several times, but I'm going to bring it up again, is that the plan is for Chuck Grassley to retire, let Kim Reynolds appoint his replacement, and he would pick the Speaker of the Iowa House, Pat Grassley, his fucking grandson, who's about my age. So that way, when you go to vote, you still see Grassley there on the Senate ballot, and you're not paying attention, and you still vote for the motherfucker, thinking you're voting for his granddad.
Yeah, and that will probably happen like that. You brought up age limits and term limits. I hear this all the time. We need age limits. We need term limits. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. But it's never going to fucking happen because the people that decide on age limits and term limits are the people who are going to be impacted by it. Congress has
Mm-hmm.
to vote for it. And there's another problem there. We've got them policing themselves, and they're never going to do something that they feel hurts them, like term limits or age limits. They're not going to fucking do it until we change it where somebody else has some authority and can make those decisions that aren't complicit. It's, you know, everybody says we got to have term limits. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, we got to have term limits, but it ain't going to happen the way we're set up now.
Yeah, it won't. Now, one of the things that they're talking about, and I think we've even discussed it on the podcast, is this idea of a convention of states to propose
Yeah.
constitutional amendments. And nobody knows how one of those would work because it's never happened. But a bunch of states have put forward this idea of holding a convention to propose term limits. And not that long ago, North Carolina joined the fray. And one of the things they want to discuss, if they ever do one of these, is putting up term limits. And if they
Right.
were to do a convention of states to come up with some constitutional amendments, the advantage is this convention would put forward however many they come up with, even if the only one they would ever do is term limits for Congress. Then it would go out, 38 states need to ratify it. As soon as it's ratified, it gets added to the Constitution. Boom, we've got term limits. And that's how you get around Congress. That's the only way to get, or we need to get the old people out, get a bunch of young people in all at once that say, yeah, okay, we need, that are like right now dealing with the effects of old people ruining everything and, resetting that way and them saying, okay, we need to pass it. Let's get it done. And they do it and take whatever effect the consequences may be, even if
Yeah,
it affects
absolutely.
them negatively. And they only serve the 1 or 2 terms. Who knows? But
Yeah.
that's the only way it gets done is one of those two ways.
There was some talk too that Matt Gaetz was going to unretire. And I heard him talking. He said, "Nah, I'm not going to do that," which is probably wise. He may run for the Senate seat that Marco Rubio is leaving to work with Donald Trump. He may run for that, or he may run for the governor of the state. But Matt's got some bigger problems to contend with. Um, Now we're recording this on Sunday. The news I heard was that his report is finally coming out. The investigation that was done on him, and it sounds like it was very damning. Republicans did everything they could to not let you see it, but the committee that did the investigation said, "Yeah, we're going to release it." And I'd heard that it was going to be released after they were done voting in Congress, which they are with that funding bill. And then I heard somebody say it should come out Monday. Now we're recording this Sunday, so we don't know if it was released or what's in it. But I want to talk about the effects on that. And I will just tell the folks you probably already know by the time you hear this. If it is released and there's big news about it and a lot of shit happening, I'll do an extra podcast. It may be a 15, 20, 25-minute thing that I'll just do, kind of bringing you up to date with it because we're ahead of time on these podcasts. But if this comes out and looks as egregious as it sounds like it's uh, going to be, what do you think about the fallout on all the people that have protected him, including the DOJ who chose not to prosecute him. This could be a shitstorm for a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans alike.
Oh yeah, it could very much be. And some of the people in Congress are saying, well, if that comes out, I'm telling everything about everybody. And they were trying to protect Matt Gaetz. Now, who knows what's all in here about who knew what and when? That's what I'm curious to know. Who knew what, because it's clearly more than just Matt Gaetz involved in this, one way or the other. People knew something at some point. And there's going to be fallout. The problem is it going to be, especially with Donald Trump coming into office? We know nothing's going to happen with the DOJ in this report with Donald Trump and the new DOJ.
No.
But beyond that is they're releasing it right at the end of the year, right before Christmas, right after we had this craziness of the spending bill, and now we got Donald Trump going out trying to reclaim the Panama Canal.
There you go.
It's going to get buried in the news cycle. So we have to keep even if it comes out and says like 30 members of the House were involved in all this and who knows what, then we need to keep the narrative up. But how do you keep that in the narrative for 2 years until Democrats have control of Congress again, or 4 years until Democrats have control of the DOJ? That's going to be hard.
Yeah, I don't know that you have to keep it in the narrative for 2 to 4 years, because there's going to be so many other things that we can keep in the narrative. What we need to do is jump on anything and everything that comes up. Matt Gaetz will be the hot topic if that report comes out and it's as bad as they say. And maybe we already know by the time you listen to this, but we got to jump all over it and hammer them, because this is what Donald Trump and the Republicans did. They tried to hang on the economy and the border, and they did stick with that, but they pounded on anything that came up at any given time. So we got to take 2 months and pound on Matt Gaetz about this, and then whatever the next thing is, we got to do that too, just to maintain the narrative. It doesn't have to be the same topic for 4 years. It's just got to be the constant flow of fucked up topics, which we know we will get. But it's interesting you mentioned about people saying that, well, if they let this out, I'm going to tell everything. We heard somebody else say that once. Remember Matthew Cawthorn when he got kicked out of the House? Well, they have these sex parties and I'm going to tell this. He didn't tell anybody anything, did he really? I have a feeling somebody like Matthew Cawthorn get a little knock at the door and saying, Matty, here's the deal. You already can't walk. What if you couldn't breathe? That may be a problem. You were talking about people with a lot of money and a lot of power. And I guarantee you there's a lot of fucked up shit going on in that Congress. And I'm not just talking about Republicans. I'm talking about Democrats too. There's a lot of shit that people don't want other people to know. So this could cause a shitstorm. But once it's out, they blew their wad. So there's really not much anybody can do to try to stop it. These people claiming, I'm going to tell everybody everything. They're trying to stop it. But once they don't stop it, it'll be interesting to see if they feel as aggressive about exposing other people, because then it will just become monkeys in a fucking cage throwing shit at each other.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have that kind of willingness to speak. But what we need to do is definitely drive the narrative like Republicans would, keep it out in the court of public opinion. And, with as thin of majorities as they're dealing with in both houses, if we can pull Republican playbook here and drive the court of public opinion, embarrass the fuck out of them and everything, maybe, and this is probably a stretch because we know Republicans don't have much of a moral compass, and they're not easily embarrassed. But maybe we can embarrass a couple of them, 2, 3 of them, 4 of them, to resign, depending on who's all involved and how egregious what they knew is. Special elections get weird. You never know, especially if they're in purple districts or they won in a Democratic district or whatever. Maybe we could flip control of the House back if we can drive this narrative.
It's
but we
worth
got
a
to see what's
shot.
in the we got to see what's in this report first. And I'm waiting to see it. Luckily, I'm typically off Mondays, so I should be off. And if it does come out, I'm going to enjoy either reading it or reading all of the articles about it. And I'm sure I'll have TikToks to say about it.
Absolutely. Well, the question, over and above the political ramifications of it and shoving it in the Republicans' face, I think the real question has to be asked of Merrick Garland. I mean, his career is pretty much over. He's sold. He's been a fucking failure. I don't know what else he can do if he's going to be a judge or whatever the fuck. But my question is going to be, if in this investigation there is proof of him having sex with an underage girl, or sex trafficking, or drug trafficking, or taking drugs, the question really needs to be asked of Merrick Garland. Everything they have, you've had. What is it that caused you to not indict Matt Gaetz? Because everything in this report looks like he should have been indicted. And I can tell you what Matt, he will not say this, but Merrick Garland in his mind did not prosecute Matt Gaetz for one reason, because he's a sitting member of Congress and he thought that might cause too much trouble. Well, fuck you. If that's the way you do business, you're in the wrong motherfucking job.
Well, except he went after George Santos as a sitting member of Congress, and he went after Bob Menendez, as sitting member, as a sitting senator. This
Exactly.
DOJ did. So that clearly wasn't the issue. At least I don't think that was the issue. So then it's something else. It wasn't that they were sitting members of Congress.
Well, I will say
What was it?
this: Matt Gaetz's career has been checkered with a lot of bad shit, all of which he's gotten out of because Dad paid some money. So now you'd have to suggest that, was there some under the table type thing with Merrick Garland or the DOJ to shut this down? Or was it pressure from Republicans to shut this down? I mean, nobody likes Matt Gaetz, but everybody hated George Santos. And the Democrats were certainly not going to try to protect Bob Menendez. What's Matt Gaetz have going for him? He's younger. He's a sitting member of Congress, and he's got a daddy with a lot of money. It could be any one of those things, really. Why
Yeah.
he got away with it, but hasn't been able to keep the wolves at bay, because apparently this thing coming out is pretty damning. So much so that Matt Gaetz is going, well, in my 30s, I did a couple of crazy things. Nothing illegal. I was totally exonerated, which he was not. But I did a lot of wild things. He's trying to cushion the blow a little bit. I don't think he's going to have much luck at that.
No, he's not. But you got him saying, I did some crazy, crazy things. Yeah. Illegal
I did
things.
too.
Yeah, he's out there trying to soften it. It's not going to work. He's trying to, you know, say, well, I might come back and I'll blow the lid off of everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that works. I think he already filed all the paperwork he needed to not take his seat next term. I don't think he can unretire from that. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I don't think
Um,
he can.
because I think they've already started planning the special election to fill his seat and stuff. Um, so who knows? I just don't know why he never got charged. I know there was some question about like one of the witnesses that would be like the star witness against him had also gotten charged on some of that same stuff.
He's
And he
in
was a
jail. Yeah.
questionable witness. Yeah, and he's in jail for it. And they're like, well, he's not a great witness and we don't really have any more evidence. But apparently they found enough evidence to release an entire report. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but it's
Right.
enough that Matt Gaetz is scared. Other members of Congress are scared about it coming out. So clearly there's stuff there. So then why? Why was Matt Gaetz singled out and left alone? But, you know, I don't know.
Well, as I said, there's a lot of probably ugly, naughty, nasty shit going on with our sitting members of Congress. And there's only going to be one time when that shit comes out. Can you guess when that's going to be? Because it may come out. And I don't know if
When?
they've thought. I don't know if they've thought about this, but who's the one guy that burns bridges and scorches earth every motherfucking day? So when
Donald
the
Trump.
Republicans in Congress say, "Oh, let's 25th Amendment him," or "Let's impeach him," Donald Trump's going to be desperate, and he's going to be talking his ass off because he's made it his business to find all the dirt on everybody he can possibly do. That's how he does business. So that'll be interesting. Will they not uh, 25th Amendment him or impeach him because they're terrified of what he might say or do to expose some fuckers? That's why, you've said before, he could die in office, and physically he could die in office. But we're also talking about the Republicans. They aren't afraid. They're bad enough to take a shot at somebody. What better way to do it? Make him a fucking martyr, prop him up, and then just take over and nobody's talking after the fact. I hate to even predict something like that, but that's a cleaner way than deal with his wrath in the process.
Yeah, you're right. And he very well could try to burn it all down. Now, the funny thing is, it's going to be some of the stuff that they're trying to keep hidden is at least a percentage of this country aren't going to care about. We're talking about like the allegations about Lindsey Graham,
Yeah.
potentially being a gay man. No, the Democrats aren't going to care, but the Republican base might. He may be
Yeah.
out of it. He may never get reelected. Um, that kind of stuff. The minute he starts getting too like, he will burn it all down on his way down. And once he realizes he's up against the wall, he's on the way out. And that could even be, you know, let's just say miracle of miracles. He makes it. We're January 15th, 2029. He hasn't burned the country down. Democrat about to get inaugurated because, whoever the Republicans run wasn't worth a shit.
Yeah.
And he realizes I got 5 days left to be in office and all this stuff hanging over my head the minute I come out. And they didn't do a damn thing to protect me and give me immunity or make it so I can't be charged or whatever. He could burn it all down then too.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it might not even be anything the Republicans do. The time might just be up on him. And as he's getting shown the door, he could release everything, whatever
Well,
he's
it's it.
got.
And that's the problem with Donald Trump, that anybody who works for him should know better. Once you cross him, once you step on his toe, once you do something he doesn't like, or once you fail and make him look bad, he's coming down like a shitstorm on you. He'll expose everything. He'll say everything. He'll fire you. He'll try to defame you in every fucking possible way. That's what's in line with these people. At some point, he's going to ask somebody, regardless of how stupid, to do something that's just putting them at risk. Because see, as much as these candidates or these nominees for this cabinet are crazy, they're not immune. They're not the president. And when this is over, they do some fucked up shit, they're going to jail. And there's going to be no delaying it like Donald Trump did because he's running for president. These fuckers are all capable of getting hammered after Donald Trump is gone. And you would hope that they realize this. There's some dumb ones that don't. But Donald Trump will take down anybody and everybody. We've seen him do it with Fox News. We've seen him do it with other Republican uh, politicians. This fucker doesn't care. If you call him a poopy butt, he's going to tear you to shreds. That's just the way it is.
Oh yeah, and he's going to eviscerate them, and I'm here for it
Oh,
because
I'm looking forward to it.
it's going to be great. We're gonna find out the truth about all these motherfuckers, and this could be. And we say this a lot. We said it before the election, and I know we were wrong, but this could be the death knell of the Republican Party as it stands right now. He could actually torch the fucker on his way down.
Honestly, this could be an incredible turning point if he goes the 4 years or however long he goes. He not only could torch the Republican Party, he may torch the whole system. We may have to rebuild from the base and come up with a new way to do this. or at least a new group of people to do this, because he's not going to stop at Republicans. He's going to go after Democrats. Then the Democrats will go. This whole thing could be like one of those things, you see in the third world countries in parliament where they're fighting and throwing shit at people. It could get that ugly based on the atmosphere that Donald Trump has created in this country and in the Congress.
It could, but I think he's more likely to turn on or on Republicans than Democrats because they were supposed to be his allies.
Right.
Democrats were always his opposition. He's not going. I don't think he's going to be as likely to burn the Democrats down nearly as much. There may be a few that go, but he's going to turn on anybody he thought was his friend, his ally. A guy like him doesn't have actual friends. He has
No.
people. They have people that use them like friends, um, and they're friends while they're convenient. But he's going to torch the works, and
Well, and
some of them are going to
the
be
thing
lucky
is,
enough to get out.
the thing is, he's transactional. So when he goes after somebody, it isn't just to burn them down. It's to get something in return. You don't want to do something, so I'm going to come after you so that you do it. So he's going to, and there's no reason to do that to Democrats because they're not going to do anything for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about bullying. It's all about leveraging or putting pressure on these people. And if somebody comes out and says something fucked up, he'll go after them until they concede, until they succumb and do what he wants. That's the whole point of why he goes after people, to get them to do what he wants. He's transactional. He needs something from them. And if they won't give it to him willingly, he'll force them. And that's why the Republicans are in a worse situation than Democrats, because he doesn't expect it out of Democrats.
Yeah, and some of the Republicans are going to be lucky enough to get out ahead. And I'm looking at people like Mitch McConnell. If Donald
Yeah.
Trump is still going in, 2027, well, Mitch McConnell will no longer be in the Senate. He will have retired. So when it comes time to burn it all down, Mitch McConnell won't be one of the ones that catches, any hell for it. And you might see, as it looks like he's going to start burning things down, you may see some people get the fuck out of Dodge. You may see more resignations. Who knows? Especially if he starts going after, I don't know, Speaker Johnson and really trying to burn him down in the House because he didn't get his way. You may see some other people in the House that have, been there a long time. They may get the fuck out
I
because
got to I wouldn't want to be speaker with Donald Trump president. I wouldn't want to be a Republican speaker with Donald Trump president. That's a fucking shit show.
yeah, I wouldn't either. And what are they going to do if he starts burning everybody down because he's not getting his way? You might see a lot of Republicans, try to save their own ass and get out ahead of Donald Trump. Well, Donald, how about this instead? I'll just resign so you can get somebody you like and they're better, and out the door they go.
Right.
Something like that.
Well, that brings up, we're coming toward the end here, and I wanted to bring this up because if it's coming soon. Um, Donald Trump is making all kinds of threats, particularly against Liz Cheney, but other people as well. So do you think that Joe Biden does those preemptive pardons to those people that are at risk? Do you think he actually takes that step? It's kind of unprecedented. Do you think he does?
I don't know. Because here's the thing, I've been going back and forth on that preemptive pardon idea. Now, the way I understand it, I could be wrong because they were talking about this in regards to, I think it was Donald Trump himself, that he might have pardoned himself on the way out the door and
Right.
nobody knew about it. I don't think he has to tell anybody. I don't think he has to record. Like, I don't know exactly the process for recording a presidential pardon, right? I don't know if he can just
Right.
give them like a slip of paper signed and dated and says, here's your pardon.
I
There
think
you
they call
go.
them pocket pardons.
Right. That was a term I remember hearing. So is it something that where it's not written down and record, like it's never talked about publicly, and he hands them out. So when things come up, they can go, "Oh, here you go. I'm safe." Um, maybe. But then you also heard what happened with Hunter right after he gets the pardon. I think it was James Comer that came out and said, "Well, he took the pardon, so he can't plead the fifth. So we want him back before Congress. We got more questions for him. And you can't plead the fifth anymore if you took a pardon. So you got to answer all of our questions."
Again, it's just a
So
ridiculous threat. You're going to be too busy making America great again. Why are you going to continue having investigations and hearings that don't come up with shit?
right, but does Joe Biden look at that going, well, that's not even going to maybe save Hunter from still having to deal with these fucks. So does that change his mind on which way he was going with the pardons? I could see it going either way, really, with that. But Joe's also old school, and I don't think he would do it if they didn't deserve a pardon. But then again, I didn't think he was going to pardon Hunter. I agree with it, but I didn't think he
Yeah.
was going to do it until he saw it was absolutely necessary.
I got to tell you this, though. Donald Trump should think twice about going after Liz Cheney. And here's why. Liz Cheney's dad, we know, is Satan, right? But we know he's
Mm-hmm.
150 years old. But he was also the CEO of Halliburton. This is a dark motherfucker who's well connected in the dark world. If he goes after Liz Cheney, if there's somebody who can punch a ticket on somebody through whatever connection he has, I wouldn't fuck with, even if he's 150, I would not fuck with Dick Cheney. That fucker's evil. And if he's going after his little girl and he's 150 and going to die anyways, what the fuck does he have to lose?
Well, Dick Cheney doesn't need all those connections anymore. Remember when he was vice president, he took the guy hunting, and it was a hunting accident, and the guy got shot in the face.
I think they should. I think Dick Cheney should take Donald Trump on a hunting expedition through fucking Dealey Plaza. Let's see how that plays out.
I really shouldn't laugh at that.
No, you shouldn't. You know, that's
But
always when I say shit. I've done this in meetings before, and I say something like that, or I'll say something to my wife, and she'll laugh, and she goes, "That's terrible. You shouldn't say it." I go, "But you laughed at the motherfucker, so you wanted to say it."
yeah, well, I mean, I was the one who was saying he took the other guy out hunting, and the second guy got shot in the face, and that was while Cheney was uh, sitting vice president and had Secret Service all around him, and they swore it was a hunting accident.
And I think the guy ended up apologizing to Cheney for getting his face in front of his gun.
Something like that. Yeah.
That
So,
makes you
I
wonder
mean,
about Dick, doesn't it?
if Dick Cheney or if Donald Trump's going after Liz, you know, maybe Donald Trump gets a hunting invitation from Dick Cheney. And
Yeah,
if that
I
happens, well, if I was Donald Trump, I would not accept.
no, I would not accept. I think yeah, I would maybe keep my hands off of Liz Cheney. That may not be the one to go after. I don't think so. But Donald's too dumb, and he's too reactionary. He's too emotional. He's fucking up before he's president. He'll continue to fuck up afterwards. And I think I was talking to a Trump fuck, and they go, "I bet you're sad that Donald Trump won." And I did this in the live. I said, well, I told this motherfucker that, yeah, I'm sad that Donald Trump is going to be president. I'm not happy about that. But in the 4 years after Donald Trump left office, just talking shit about Donald Trump every day, I got 400,000 followers on TikTok, a bunch of followers on YouTube, and I made a fair amount of money doing it. So while I'm not happy about him being president again, and I would gladly give up that, I got another 4 years to fucking get more followers and make more money off kicking Donald Trump's ass every day. What better job could there be?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like we've talked about, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for content and talking about the egregious and the stupid shit and what can reasonably happen, what can't happen, um, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be easy pickings. And we're gonna have to kick his ass in the media, and we people like us
every
are
day.
gonna have to do the heavy lifting for the Democrats because for whatever reason they can't message for shit. So we got to do it for them.
Case in point, how do you kick his ass every day? All you have to do is hear him say, I'm going to take back the Panama Canal, and Elon Musk isn't the president. I'm the president. Fucking writes itself.
Yeah, it's easy. I think I did three or four TikTok. I think three TikToks, and I got a live out of him talking about the Panama Canal.
It's hilarious. Well, Eric, we're going to wrap things up. I appreciate you coming on. Like I say, I see you more than my granddaughter, and I'm happy to have you on the show, but I wish I was seeing my granddaughter more than you. I'm just saying.
Like I said earlier, I don't blame you for that. I get that. For those that are looking to find me, just going to throw it out
Yeah.
there. Analytical Iowan on TikTok, YouTube, Analytical Iowan on Blue Sky. Um, I think I'm also on Threads, but I don't think I post anything on there. Uh, I just created the account one day out of on a whim.
Yeah.
Um, but if you find me on one, I've got a link tree that will link to everybody or everything on all the rest. So if you can find me on any one of them, you can find me there. I will also typically drop a couple comments in the video in a lot of your videos, especially the ones I'm on. So you can find my page that way.
Right.
Um, and then I'm going to throw this out there as well on my link tree. I have an affiliated creators tab that goes to a second link tree. And that's got a link back to all to your link tree. It's got a link to Will, TJ the
Oh,
plumber.
cool.
And there's somebody else on there too, I think. But just different creators that I'm starting to interact with. So if people are looking to find them, I can direct them in a spot.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if people are looking for some of the links, you know, I've been putting people on there trying to help out, get anybody else some traction that I can.
Eh, eh, Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. Listen to Eric. A lot of people listen to Eric now. I listen to Eric because he gives a lot of details that you can't get normally in the news. Maybe not even from me. I talk in a bigger picture. He talks more details. That's why it's valuable to me. People keep coming to me. Are you on Blue Sky? Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. Um, why wouldn't I be on Blue Sky? I'm fucking cool, and that's a cool place to be. Um, but people say I can't find you on Blue Sky. I go, well, before I got there, there were two imposters of me on Blue Sky. They were there before I was. So when I went to sign up, I couldn't just take Rational Boomer. I had to add a number to it. So I added my birthday, Rational Boomer 416. So that's how you find it. The other two, I think I got them both kicked off of Blue Sky. I'm not sure, but I think I did. But you can find me there on Blue Sky. And those people who listen to Facebook, who always got my videos there, you can't get them there because I got fucking banned. And when you get banned on Facebook, you get banned on Instagram and you get banned on Threads. So you can't find me in those places. But if you go to Blue Sky, there's a link to YouTube for all the videos I did on Facebook and TikTok and everything. So it's easy to find. Join. Eric and I are on Blue Sky because, well, we're cool. So if you want to be cool like us, and who doesn't, join Blue Sky and follow both of us. I'm just telling you right now. It's the only way to be cool. It used to be cool if you smoked. Now that doesn't work. So being cool is being on Blue Sky, I guess. I don't spend a lot of time on it, but at least my videos are there and Eric's videos are there too. So check that shit out.
Yeah, I got lucky with Blue Sky. I got in before I got to be a big enough creator where there were fakes of me.
Yeah,
So I was able to get just analytical Iowan. Um, but yeah, I post links to all my content over there as well. Um, just like Mike does, links to everything over on YouTube. And like I said, if you find me on any one of the platforms, I've got a link to a link tree on all of them, so you can find me anywhere else. Makes it nice and
absolutely.
simple.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thanks for coming on. Those of you listening, I want to thank you for the taking the time to listen, as always. I hope you have a great day. a great Christmas Eve. That's where we're at right now. And fuck Donald Trump, fuck Matt Gaetz, fuck all Republicans. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to
Merry
you
Christmas,
tomorrow.
everybody.
And I will talk to you on Christmas, one way or another. I'll be here. If you sorry fucks have nothing better to do than listen to the podcast, you'll be listening to yet another sorry fuck in me. So 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 we'll be here. I made a commitment to be here every day. Christmas, fuck, Hanukkah. I'm here. I'm just always here. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.